message arrived at 9:12 in the morning, just as the sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor and caught the edge of a half-burnt piece of toast. Aarav Siddiqui stared at his phone like it had just betrayed him. It wasn't the kind of message a man like him expected, especially not from his CEO. His thumb hovered over the screen, heart tightening, as the words sank in again. A dinner reservation, a name he didn't recognize, and a simple instruction that felt anything but simple. He hadn't been on a date in years. Not since life had folded in on itself and left him with more responsibilities than dreams. Not since he became a single father overnight. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heartfelt Stories. Because sometimes life surprises us when we least expect it. Aarav turned off the stove and glanced toward the small bedroom down the hallway. His daughter, Meher, was still asleep, her tiny world untouched by the heaviness he carried. She was 6 years old, all bright eyes and quiet questions, and she depended on him for everything. Every school lunch packed before sunrise, every bedtime story whispered through exhaustion, every scrape knee kissed better. His life revolved around her in a way that left little room for anything or anyone else. The message from his CEO, Farhan Qureshi, felt almost intrusive. Aarav respected the man deeply. Farhan had given him a job when no one else would, had overlooked his distracted mornings and sudden early departures when Meher needed him. But this felt different. Personal, uncomfortable, a setup disguised as concern. Still, Aarav wasn't the kind of man who ignored his responsibilities. And somehow, he felt like this was one too. The office that day buzzed with its usual rhythm. Keyboards clacking, muted conversations drifting between cubicles, the low hum of ambition hanging in the air. Aarav kept his head down, trying to focus on spreadsheets and deadlines, but his mind wandered back to the message again and again. He wondered what Farhan had been thinking. Maybe he saw something in Aarav that he himself had stopped seeing, a man who could still begin again. Or maybe it was just pity. By afternoon, the thought of the evening weighed heavier than any workload. Aarav almost typed a message to cancel, fingers hesitating over the screen. But then he remembered Meher's laugh the night before, how she had asked him why he never smiled the way other fathers did at school events. The question had lingered, quietly breaking something inside him. So he didn't cancel. The restaurant was modest but warm, tucked into a quiet corner of the city where the chaos seemed to soften. The kind of place where sunlight filtered through large windows and painted everything gold. Aarav arrived early, as he always did, choosing a table near the window where he could see the street outside. It gave him something to focus on besides his own nerves. Minutes stretched. He checked his watch, then his phone, then the door. And then she walked in. For a moment, the world seemed to tilt. Aarav felt his breath catch, his chest tightening in a way he hadn't felt in years. Because the woman standing at the entrance, scanning the room with hesitant eyes, wasn't a stranger. It was Zoya Raymond. The past didn't return gently. It crashed in all at once, carrying memories Aarav had spent years trying to bury. Zoya had once been the center of his world, a quiet storm of strength and warmth who had believed in him before he believed in himself. Their story hadn't ended in anger or betrayal, but in something far more painful. Circumstance, timing, and the kind of silence that grows between two people when life pulls them in different directions. She saw him then, and in that single moment, years melted away. Aarav stood slowly, his mind racing, his heart louder than anything in the room. He hadn't expected this. Not her, not now. Not after everything. The air between them felt fragile, like one wrong move could shatter completely. They sat down across from each other, both unsure, both carrying unspoken histories in their eyes. Aarav noticed the subtle changes, how her smile had softened, how there was a quiet resilience in her posture. Life hadn't been easy for her either. He could see it. Time moved differently at that table. Slower, heavier, yet somehow lighter too. Aarav found himself thinking about the man he had been when he last saw her. Hopeful, reckless in his dreams. And then he thought about the man he had become. Tired, careful, shaped by responsibility and loss. He wondered what she saw when she looked at him now. The truth was, he had loved her once in a way that had felt permanent. And maybe a part of him still did, buried beneath years of survival. But love wasn't simple anymore, because now there was Meher. Everything Aarav did, every decision he made, revolved around his daughter. She wasn't just a part of his life. She was his life. And the idea of letting someone new into that fragile, carefully balanced world terrified him. Even if that someone was Zoya. Outside, the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows across the street. Inside, something began to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, like a door creaking open after being shut for too long. Aarav felt it in the way his guarded thoughts softened, in the way the heaviness in his chest eased just a little. For the first time in years, he wasn't just thinking about surviving the next day. He was imagining something beyond it, something warmer, something human. As the evening approached, Aarav found himself walking home under a sky painted in fading gold. His steps felt different, lighter somehow, though his mind was full. He opened the door to his small apartment and was immediately greeted by Meher's excited energy. She ran toward him, her laughter filling the space in a way that always made everything else fade. He lifted her into his arms, holding her a little tighter than usual. For a long time, Aarav had believed that his story had already settled into its final shape, that his role was simply to endure, to provide, to be everything his daughter needed, without asking for anything in return. But now, something had shifted. Not a complete transformation. Not yet, but a beginning. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of that unexpected meeting stayed with him. It wasn't just about seeing Zoya again. It was about what it stirred in him. The realization that he was still capable of feeling, of hoping, of wanting more than just survival. He started noticing small things again. The way Meher's laughter echoed through the house, the way the morning light fell on his face during his walk to work, the way life, despite everything, still held moments of quiet beauty. And slowly, carefully, he began to let those moments matter. Because sometimes second chances don't arrive with grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes they come quietly, wrapped in the unexpected, asking only that you be brave enough to recognize them. If this story touched your heart even a little, take a moment to share and comment. It truly helps these stories reach more people who might need them. And before we reach the end, here's something special. Tell us in the comments. Do you believe people deserve a second chance at love? That night, as Aarav tucked Meher into bed, he paused at the doorway a little longer than usual. He watched her sleep, her small hand curled around the edge of her blanket, her world still simple, still safe. For the first time in a long while, Aarav allowed himself to imagine a future that wasn't defined by fear or loss, but by possibility. Because sometimes, the person you least expect to walk back into your life is the one who reminds you that your story isn't over yet. And sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected moment to begin again.